There is a strange silence that surrounds truly intelligent people. Not celebration, not admiration, just unease. It begins early, often in childhood. A child who questions rules instead of obeying them, who prefers solitude over shallow play, who asks why when everyone else has already accepted, just because. Over time, this silence turns into isolation, and eventually, suspicion. Why? Because intelligence, in its rawest form, doesn't just illuminate, it unsettles. It peels back the curtain on the comfortable illusions that hold society together. And most people, when confronted with that kind of truth, don't say thank you. They say, you're dangerous. We are taught to think of intelligence as a gift, a badge of honor, a tool that helps us succeed. But that's not quite true. Real intelligence, not memorized facts or test scores, but the ability to think independently, critically, and deeply, is a disruption. It doesn't fit easily into institutions. It doesn't obey the script, sees the rules and questions why they exist at all. And in systems designed for compliance, school, corporations, governments, that kind of mind is a threat. Not because it's malicious, but because it sees too clearly. Schopenhauer once observed, the more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. For the intelligent, nothing is self-evident. They live in a constant state of tension between what is and what could be. That tension is what gives them insight, but it's also what isolates them. Most fear is hidden. We don't always know why we dislike someone, why we avoid a conversation, or why we resist an idea. But under the surface, the psychological machinery is working. When we meet someone clearly more intelligent, it challenges something primal. Our sense of control, our place in the hierarchy, even our identity. It reminds us of how much we don't know, how fragile our worldview really is. And for many, that's unbearable. So the mind reacts not with curiosity, but with defensiveness. Studies in social psychology have shown that when people feel intellectually outmatched, they don't lean in, they shut down. They change the subject, they mock, they resist. Not because the idea is wrong, but because it's too right, too soon. Intelligence, in this sense, becomes a form of social exile. A person who sees more than others must learn to carry that sight alone. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't romanticize intelligence. He didn't see it as noble or heroic or destined for success. He saw it as a tragedy, a quiet suffering that follows the one who sees too much. In his eyes, most people live in what he called the veil of Maya, a world of illusion, distraction, and desire. But the intelligent person rips through that veil, not by choice, but by nature. And what they find on the other side is often cold, vast, and lonely. They see the absurdity of chasing money that can't buy meaning, the hollowness of social rituals that pretend to be connection, the tragedy of life devouring itself, generation after generation. And so, Schopenhauer writes, the person who has become awake to the suffering of the world must necessarily become melancholic. But here's the paradox. Society doesn't thank the thinker for seeing clearly. It blames him for making things uncomfortable. Humans are tribal by nature. We evolved to survive in groups, not as lone geniuses. That means we instinctively prioritize agreement over accuracy and belonging over truth. This is why groupthink spreads faster than insight. When everyone agrees on something, even if it's wrong, there's comfort in the chorus. Dissent, on the other hand, feels like an attack. So when an intelligent person says, "I don't think that's right," or "What if we're all missing something?" it doesn't come across as helpful. It comes across as disruptive. Schopenhauer knew this too. He believed that intelligent individuals would always feel like outsiders, not because they choose solitude, but because truth isolates. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. If he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom." in a world addicted to agreement. Freedom of thought becomes a burden, but society doesn't just ignore intelligent people, it pathologizes them. Think about the words we use to describe deep thinkers: overthinker, to serious, difficult, intense, depressed, weird, unrelatable. These aren't critiques of behavior. They're social warnings, signals that someone isn't playing the game. But what if the game itself is broken? What if being happy in a world full of illusion is the real disorder? Psychology today is beginning to explore this. The idea that many people labeled as misfits or maladapted may in fact be responding appropriately to a disordered society. They're not dysfunctional, they're honest. But honesty is expensive, especially in a world that runs on performance. You might think the education system supports intelligence, but most schools don't reward independent thinking. They reward obedience. Memorize the correct answer. Follow the structure. Don't challenge the narrative. Those who question the curriculum are seen as rebellious. Those who challenge the teacher are punished. Those who want to go deeper are told to stay. On topic. This isn't education, it's indoctrination. Schopenhauer saw this coming. He warned that systems of control would always disguise themselves as systems of care. That the true goal of most institutions is not to enlighten, but to stabilize. And intelligence, real intelligence, is a destabilizing force. Which is why society teaches children to suppress it, mask it, ignore it, until they either conform or collapse under the weight of their own mind. Being intelligent means being more aware, and awareness is a burden. You see patterns, others don't. You detect contradictions, people ignore. You understand consequences before they arrive. But this awareness doesn't just make you smart, it makes you sensitive. You feel more. You think more. You suffer more. And while others can numb themselves with noise, social media, shallow relationships, mindless entertainment, you struggle to look away. Because intelligence isn't just about thought. It's about attention. And the intelligent person pays attention, even when it hurts. So what happens to the intelligent person who sees too much, feels too deeply, and speaks too clearly? They're not burned at the stake anymore. But they are quietly erased, passed over, talked around, left alone at the edge of the crowd. And yet, in that loneliness, there's something sacred. A space that no one else enters. A kind of freedom the crowd will never know. Solitude isn't always chosen. Sometimes it's imposed. But for the intelligent person, solitude eventually becomes something else. A sanctuary. In solitude, there's no need to perform. No expectation to dilute your thoughts. No pressure to laugh at things that aren't funny or agree with ideas that make no sense. Schopenhauer called solitude the fountain of freedom. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's honest. He wrote, "A man who does not enjoy solitude will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." In the quiet, the intelligent mind can breathe, think deeply, wander without interruption, and feel something close to peace. But peace doesn't last forever, 'cause even the most thoughtful mind eventually feels the weight of being unseen. What few people talk about is the emotional loneliness that comes with intelligence. It's not just that you think differently, it's that your inner world becomes increasingly difficult to share. The things that excite you confuse others. The questions that haunt you bore them. Your insights are met with blank stares, quick subject changes, or polite silence. So you begin to shrink. You speak less. You simplify your thoughts. You play down your complexity to preserve connection. But every time you do that, you betray a small part of your truth. And eventually, you start to wonder, is there anyone who truly sees me? This is not arrogance. It's not superiority. It's longing, the quiet ache of a mind that wants to be met. Intelligent people are often misunderstood. Not because they are unclear, but because their clarity makes others uncomfortable. You speak carefully, they say, you're guarded. You stay quiet, they say you're cold. You bring up a deeper perspective, they call it overthinking. But what they don't see is this. Every word you choose has been weighed. Every silence you hold is deliberate. Every thought you share has already been trimmed down for comfort, because you've learned painfully that too much truth too quickly makes people defensive. So you edit yourself, not to deceive, but to survive. And over time, this habit becomes invisible even to you. To see clearly is a kind of superpower. But it comes with a price. When you see through manipulation, you can't play along. When you sense dishonesty, you can't pretend. When you notice the emptiness in things others obsess over, you can't force yourself to care. This makes life harder, because the world isn't built for clarity. It's built for comfort. It rewards the confident, not the correct, the charming, not the wise, the agreeable, not the honest. And so, many intelligent people end up stuck between two impossible choices. Dilute yourself to belong, or stay whole and remain alone. Schopenhauer believed that this conflict was unavoidable. That suffering was not a flaw of life, but a function of awareness. He wrote, "The greater the intellect, the greater the need for solitude, because with clarity comes sorrow, and with sorrow, the need to retreat. The world craves simple stories. Good versus bad, right versus wrong, us versus them, black and white. Intelligent people, on the other hand, live in the gray. They don't just ask what happened, they ask why. They don't just pick a side, they analyze the whole structure. And this makes them inconvenient. Complexity takes time. It takes energy. It forces people to think. But society doesn't want thought. It wants narrative, a good story, a clean hero, a satisfying conclusion. The intelligent person knows better that real life is chaotic, unresolved, filled with contradiction. But try saying that out loud in a world obsessed with headlines and hashtags, and you'll quickly become an outsider. So why, ultimately, is society afraid of intelligent people? Because they can't be controlled. They don't buy into propaganda. They don't follow blindly. They question authority. They dismantle ideologies. They expose hypocrisy. They don't need permission to think. They don't crave validation to feel worthy. They don't bow to status, titles, or tradition. That kind of person is untouchable and therefore dangerous. Not violent, not rebellious, but dangerous in the most profound way. They make people see, and seeing, truly seeing, is painful, which is why intelligent people are often exiled before they're ever understood. To think deeply is to feel deeply, and to feel deeply is to carry more than most. That's the hidden burden. You're not just thinking about your own life. You're thinking about the structure of society, the nature of time, the absurdity of existence, the future of humanity, the meaning or meaninglessness of it all. This kind of thinking can't be turned off. It haunts you. It shows up in your dreams, your relationships, your quiet moments. Don't get to rest in the bliss of ignorance. You live on the edge of the void, staring in. And you smile in public, but inside, there's a storm. Schopenhauer didn't see this as weakness. He saw it as the cost of honesty. A quiet life with the opportunity to be intelligent is better than a life of noise where the mind goes to sleep. If society fears intelligent people, what should intelligent people do? First, understand this. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not unrelatable. You are simply awake in a world that prefers to sleep. You may never be fully seen by the masses. But that's not your purpose. Your purpose is to carry the flame, to keep truth alive, even when it burns. Find solitude, not as exile, but as home. Find meaning, not in crowds, but in thought. Find others like you, even if they are rare, even if they are dead and live only in books. And above all, protect your mind. Don't dull it to fit in. Don't shrink it to be loved. Don't silence it to feel safe. You are not meant to fit. You are meant to see. So if this spoke to you, if you've ever felt alone in a room full of people, if you've ever stayed silent because you knew they wouldn't understand, if you've ever felt like your thoughts are both a gift and a curse, then know this: you are not alone. You are rare. You are necessary. Schopenhauer wouldn't have told you to cheer up. He would have told you to accept your depth, to own your exile, to walk your path, even if no one walks with you. Because in a world that fears intelligent people, to stay intelligent is the ultimate act of courage. One of the strangest traits of truly intelligent people is that they often say less. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the cost of saying it. They've seen how quickly truth turns into threat, how easily honesty becomes exile, and how often people ask questions not to learn, but to test loyalty. So the intelligent learn a skill few others master: restraint. They let others talk. They let foolishness exhaust itself. They speak only when the silence matters more than the applause. To outsiders, this might look like weakness, but it isn't. It's strength turned inward. It's the power of knowing and choosing not to use that knowledge as a weapon, because they understand something deeper. Winning arguments doesn't mean changing minds, and changing minds doesn't always mean healing hearts. There's a myth that if you're intelligent, people will eventually understand you. That's not always true. Some minds are meant to be foreign. They speak a language that most people will never learn. Not because it's too complex, but because it's too honest. So if you felt alienated, it may not be a detour. It may be the path itself. Alienation is painful, yes, but it's also cleansing. It strips away illusion. It reveals who's truly aligned with you and who's only mirroring what they expect. Schopenhauer understood this. He saw that intelligent people were destined to be inward travelers, not because they're antisocial, but because their social world can't meet them where they are. And in that isolation, something strange happens. You stop apologizing for being deep. You stop resenting your difference. You stop trying to belong where you don't. Okay? And you begin quietly, slowly to belong to yourself. Despite all this, the fear, the exile, the misunderstanding, society does need intelligent people. Not as entertainers, not as figureheads, but as lighthouses. Unmoving, unshakable, visible from afar. The world may not come close, it may not know how to. But in moments of chaos, collapse, or confusion, it looks for light. And that's what the intelligent person offers. Not charisma, not certainty, but clarity. And clarity is rare. That's why your job isn't to fix everything. It's to see clearly and let others orient themselves when they're ready. You are not the storm. You are the one who notices the weather patterns before anyone else knows they're changing. And even if no one listens, your insight still matters. So maybe society will never fully accept you. Maybe your mind will always be a little too sharp, your words a little too heavy, your presence a little too intense. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're rare. And the rarest metals are the strongest. Schopenhauer didn't believe in false hope. He believed in brutal honesty, followed by radical self-respect. He believed that a person who sees clearly should not dim themselves to be liked, but rather to live deliberately, think deeply, and carry solitude with dignity. So if you walk alone, walk on purpose, not away from others, but toward something real. You were not meant to be a copy. You were not designed to be understood by everyone. You are not here to chase applause. You are here to see, to know, to hold the light, even when the world turns away. And one day, maybe quietly, maybe unexpectedly, someone will recognize your mind. They will meet you where you are. And they'll say, "I thought I was the only one." Until then, keep thinking, keep seeing. Stay you. If this resonated, leave a word below, a beacon for those who walk alone. For philosophy that refuses to soften, subscribe. Your mind deserves this. We're just getting started.